All right, we won't even wait for him to sit down. All right, we're going to start this off. Our next speaker is John Bland. Many of you here in the room know him. He's been a board member on AFIN for a long time. John Bland, with several family members, own and operate Barbeejay Supplies Ltd near Strathmore. Runs a very diverse business, including sales and rentals, but is mostly concentrated on growing forages and cattle, which he has been doing for over 45 years. I consider John to be a friend, and so would you join me and welcome him up to the stage?
Please. Are we ready now? Anyway, one of my favorite sayings, it takes two things to grow forages in southern Alberta, rain and patience. And more people are short on patience than they are on rain. Just going to give a little of kind of my experience. I had to put this together quickly. I'm going to have to depend on Amanda to flip my slides here, I think, and show you a little about our operation and kind of how we do it. That is strictly my opinion. Some of you will beg to differ with me. We presently put up about 5,500 acres of hay on mostly dry land. Last year in the drought, we averaged under a bale an acre. Beat the hell out of our equipment for not much. To compensate, I bought irrigated timothy, which we baled and sold. And I also bought quite a bit of standing barley and baled it and sold it. Incidentally, that barley came off land owned by Leanne's family, and a lot of it went to Doug Ray to feed his cows. So networking in this crowd is wonderful. We also buy a lot of straw in the swath, did I say that? And sell it to feedlots. We've done a lot of reclamation over the years and continue to grow that end of the business. The solar thing in southern Alberta, maybe more than southern Alberta, is going crazy, and there's lots of opportunity there to get involved in the reclamation business. And with the new Premier's new requirements the other day, if you're going to grow or if you're going to put solar farms on 1 and 2 soil, you have to integrate livestock. So with a partner, we're on the sheep end aside. I plant the grass, she pastures the sheep. So I think that end is going to really grow. Yeah, I guess we should be changing some. Let's see what we got there, Amanda. I'm going to throw a couple of little twists in here. Yeah, keep. Okay, yep. And there's a video. There we are. Everybody talks about year-round grazing. I don't think you know what you're talking about. This is year-round grazing. This is our cow herd a couple of weeks ago. They came home a few days ago to get ready for calving. But this is year-round grazing. And I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because sometimes, but even last year with 2 feet of snow, they got about half their feed off this field. We go in there from December 15th to March 15th. And they do an amazing job of wintering on very little supplemental feed. So
you're selling your hay to everyone else?
Absolutely. Here's our year-round watering system, and I challenge anyone to have a better, cheaper year-round watering system. You don't see a power pole or an aerator or anything else there, do you? That is priceless, absolutely priceless. It is not a spring, and it is open. It took me actually a few years to figure out what it was, and I shouldn't give out my secrets, but there is very, very tiny streams of probably methane gas coming out of the swamp, and it keeps it open. A spring will flow and overflow, and this is priceless. No matter how cold it gets, that is what we see. So, yep, just keep moving. Keep moving. So, okay. The other thing this past year, everybody talked about they're running out of pasture. That is October 10th, our cows and calves. There's some grass on the ground there. You can't, most guys that are, if you run out of grass in May, or in June, July, August, you probably got too many cows. But so you have to have some grass to have the year-round grazing. Yep, keep going. I throw that in just for fun. That was an accidental. I bought that cow. She wasn't supposed to calve till April, and that's a March 1st calf. But out there on the big pasture that we just showed, and luckily we found her in time. There were 6 coyotes circling her when we got out there. So yep. Some of our methods of seeding, that's where I'm just leading into, if you just hold on there. We primarily seeded, years ago, seeded a cover crop and then used a Valmar and harrows to follow behind. That worked good as long as it rained. Today we seed large acreages with like the air drill on the right. We seed one pass, seed our cover crop, seed our forages. We've seeded thousands of acres with that particular outfit, and it works really good. The one on the left is a small Valmar with harrows underneath that we actually built to seed in the rows of the solar farm. And on the one we did 2 years ago, my guy on that drill, the way they had set up the solar farm, he had to back in and seed out 2,300 times and never hit a panel. Pretty good operator. Most of the ones we're looking forward to seeding here, we can seed right through. But this design of this one at Strathmore was a pain in the ass. Next. That's pictures from a few years ago, but that was seeded with the air drill in one pass into standing stubble. I'm sure you can see little alfalfa plants right in amongst all of that. It was coming right with the cover crop.
People are online, John.
Sorry?
People are online.
Okay. Oh, don't walk away from the mic. Keep talking. Thank you, sir. Yep. Kind of today, my preferred method is our Haybuster 107 drills, and we'll come to a picture of them in a little bit. Seeding directly into standing stubble. Like, you need a good firm seed bed, and Grant and Doug and I were talking last night, and you can pack it, you can do that. We do a lot of custom seeding for people, and especially my acreage friends, they'll come and they'll say, so what's this piece you want seeded? What was in it last year? Well, it was this or it was that. But boy, we've rototilled it about 6 times, and it is nice and fluffy, 6 or 8 inches deep. And I say, please call me next year, because I can't and won't seed it. We were just down at Lethbridge and listening to Dr. Dan Undersander and experts on alfalfa, and they're saying, 3 to 4 years is max we should leave these crops in. Well, in our dryland country, sometimes it takes that long to get them established. At least a couple of years. So maybe I leave my crops too long. I like 8 to 10 years, as long as they're producing. That's the bottom line. And I've left some longer than that. The downside of that, yeah, it might be producing a little less, but it costs a lot of money to take them out and have them out. And I like about a minimum of 3 years. And so I leave them as long as they are producing. I'm just never graze a crop in year 1, and preferably not in year 2. So many, and again, I pick on the acreage people. They want me to come in, redo their grass. And I said, like, are you prepared to feed your horses for a while? Well, we probably could for a couple of weeks. How about 3 years? Absolutely not. You have to have it producing so I can turn my horses back out there on the 1st of July. Sorry, we're not going to do it. Today, I aim for a mix of 2 or 3 legumes, mostly alfalfa, some sicer, some sandfoin. You can use more sandfoin, and sandfoin's great. It's also very expensive because a big seed, you have to seed a lot more pounds per acre. And that's something you can work out. But I then add 2 or 3 grasses for a maximum of about 6 varieties. I see a lot of mixes with 8 and 12 varieties. I don't think that's necessary. Guess it'll work too. For hay, I use crested wheat, meadow brome, and some tall fescue. One of the first things I look for when I'm going out to seed or make recommendations is what's the end use of the crop going to be? Are you looking to grow horse hay, cow hay, pasture, and soil types? You'll see different things at Olds or the Peace Country than you will at Oyen, Alberta. And you have to take that into consideration. If the crop is for hay or pasture, we want maximum production, so we are aiming for high yielding forages that suit the environment. We do a lot of reclamation, so, and when I say reclamation, the sheep thing isn't really reclamation, it's seeding for pasture, so we do that differently again, but we do, for 40 years, we did all of Western Irrigation District's bank. So we wanted something to stabilize the soil, so we go with some pretty short growing, the creeping red fescue, some of that kind of stuff. My original blend years ago was 50% alfalfa, 50% crested wheat, which actually worked pretty good. When meadow brome came along, we switched to a lot more meadow brome. Loved it. What we found with meadow brome in our country, at least, it produces like hell, and then it just quits. Our rotations are shorter with meadow brome. The old crested wheat and the alfalfa, it seems to go on forever. One of my areas I really like to work with in our area, we've got a lot of saline or alkaline ground, and I'm surrounded by all big grain farmer neighbors. Some of them moved to the Peace, but anyway, a lot of really good farmers, and I've been preaching to them that, you know, those areas are returning you nothing on investment. So, but in the early days, they wanted to have as many acres as they could for quota. Then they wanted to make nice big straight lines. Today with GPS, they can map those areas out and go around them. And, you know, the inputs on those acres are 300, and some people suggest as high as 500 an acre. And I've said to some of them, if you just gave me those acres, you're a long way ahead. But nobody's taken me up on that yet. But we work with them or we rent those acres, get them into hay, better for the soil by a long shot. And right now, I think I've got virtually every one of my grain farmer neighbors, young guys that I call kids that are in their 50s and turning 60. But anyway, it's working out really good. I just read some research, and I think it was the last issue of Grain News, that a researcher's done all this work and come to the conclusion there's no return on investment farming these wet areas, saline areas, so they should put them into forages. I've been preaching that for 40 years. And he's right. And he's right. Ducks Unlimited, they're not here. And I work with them a little bit too, but they just come out with a program, and I haven't talked to them since they announced the program. They'll actually pay the farmers per acre payment on areas, saline areas. They call them marginal areas that they put into forages. But there's a problem with it. They have it's 40 acres max per quarter. So I got a neighbor with a full section of land, and 1/4 is horrible. We want to seed it all to forages, but they'll only pay them for 40 acres on that quarter. The other 3/4 don't have any marginal land. So it has its restrictions, but it is there, and it's a good program in the right direction. Taking out the forage stand, I like to leave it out for 3 years and grow. You can grow anything you want in there. We grow primarily oats because we can put those through cattle. I have grown barley. I have grown canola. So shortcuts don't work. And I want to emphasize shortcuts don't work. The guys that have convinced me to break it up 1 year and maybe take it out for a year and put it back, in my opinion, shortcuts don't work. And I just read another research article, and I was telling the guys last night about it. This researcher who writes in Grain News said he started in 1982 trying to figure out why alfalfa seeded on alfalfa that had just been taken out, winter killed. And he's now come to the conclusion 40 years later that it isn't winter kill, that the old plants are allelopathic, which kills the new seedlings. We knew that 40 years ago. So I'm picking on researchers, but there's some great researchers around too. Years ago, I started on a patch of 30 acres of white dust. And it took me quite a while, but I got that all growing eventually. Back in those days, tall fescue, right? That's and crested wheat. Crested wheat's pretty resilient. I've used it in a lot of reclamation stuff. I always include alfalfa. And most seed companies, when they sell their saline mix, they don't include alfalfa in it or a very small percentage. I go 50% even in those because them roots get down. And we often have to go back and reseed areas for a year or two to get those going. Today, Saltlander, and I love Saltlander. There's pros and cons that people talk about it, but research, I'm praising the researchers, tell me it'll grow equally as well as tall wheatgrass in saline areas, but it has a lot more forage benefit to it. And I'm going to praise another researcher. We're going to try some Bridgeview alfalfa this year, Surya, which Surya developed, and it's supposed to have saline tolerance, correct? I got to take his word for it. We're going to try it. Even if it's a little better than the varieties we're using, any pluses help us out in that regard. Hey, we forgot to keep moving the slides. How about let's see what slides we missed. Okay, next. Next. Here's one I wanted to talk about. And I'm coming to that. But anyway, on that particular, it's a half section of land. When we first seeded it to forages, there was 30 or 40 potholes we seeded. We're in a pothole country when it rains. And we seeded around 30 or 40 potholes. We went back in the fall and seeded as many as we could. Just direct seeded them. This was 14th of February, no, in February of 2014. And it looks kind of crazy. I drove over ice. I drove through cattails. And we have hayed every square foot of that field since. We get a good take, seeding in February, and we've just taken that field out of production last fall. Well, no, that's fine. I probably seeded. No, I probably seeded. I didn't seed what's the one we seed in water? Reed Canary. No, I didn't. And it's been dry years ever since, and they haven't flooded out since. So I probably used my alfalfa crested wheat meadow brome is probably what I seeded in there. Speaking of that, neighbors just down the road from us have a big slough that they claim they farmed once in the last 40 years. And every fall, it's all cattails. They go in and disc it down. And quite a few years ago, I started bugging them about seeding it to grass. And, oh, we can't, John, because it'll just flood out every year. And I said, yeah, you can. And finally, I said, if you're not going to do it, let me do it. No, we'll do it. So they went and seeded it, primarily a Reed Canary. A couple of years ago, they got 83 round bales off it. There isn't a cattail in the field. If you cut the cattails and seed something like Reed Canary in, yeah, it isn't your highest end hay. But like the old guy said one day, if it don't make a turd, it'll push one out. So sorry about being a little crude. But that's one of my success stories. And Leanne probably knows the slough right on Bruce Farms, just down the road from us. And it's produced a good, because it's always dry by fall. So they can hay it. Just kind of a lineup of some of our equipment. We make round and square bales, and we make silage bales. We have a lot of foxtail barley in our area. And people try everything, and probably one of my most asked questions is, what do we do to control it? You manage it. First cut, we want to be cutting hay by the 12th, 13th of June. Usually our weather isn't good to make good dry hay. Silage bales work perfect in there, and we have top end hay. After 2 or 3 years of keeping your foxtail from seeding out, and the other crop will crowd it out mostly, we manage foxtail. And it's along with alkali land. It likes the same soil. So we run round and square balers. Next, we cut with self-propelled disc vines. Next, questions. Let's see what else I've got on here. Hey, that kind of come to the end. We've covered a lot of ground. I've jumped all over. Open to questions. Fertility is important. I rely on my legumes for a lot of my fertility. I use maybe less fertilizer than I should. Every time I think I should, I look at the price and it scares me off. So, yeah, I don't use a lot of commercial fertilizer.
Any other questions for John?
Hey, I answered all the questions. Told them everything they needed to know. But no, it's kind of been fun. Like I said, we do a lot of different things. We're also in the cow business, so our cows, along with the fact that we graze them as much as we can, my cows have never seen a bale of hay that's been a saleable bale of hay. They get rid of all my mediocre hay, and we background a lot of calves and tub grind that along with some baled oats. Yes, Ed. Yes, I can hear you.
What do you do to mitigate drought situations or try to get the most out of a field in a dry condition?
I told a lot of people last year, either do a rain dance or pray, which way you lean. There's on our hay side, regardless of how the drought is, we start cutting early and we cut corner to corner. Let's take what's there. And about 5 years ago, it started raining in July, and we got a beautiful second cut on almost all acres. That's happened once in my career. That don't happen very often. A lot of if we get any second cut on dry land, it's the stuff we cut early, mid-June. But, and again, on a dry year like this, like I said, the barley crop that we bought from Leanne's relatives, 1st of June, we'd had 3 inches of rain. That crop's 3 miles east of us, and they had 0. So the crop was up and down. Wild oats were coming in more than they'd like, but it made very good feed. So every year's different, Ed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I will be around at break and after. Thank you very much. Sure. Well, my favorite is seeding into standing stubble from last year. Whether I seed with the air drill or with my haybuster drill, even with the air drill, it's one pass. And we always roll our fields afterwards. That's more for the rocks and lumps than it is but it also helps the seed bed. So, like I said, I virtually refuse to seed a field when I go there and it's all cultivated or especially rototilled up real nice. So, one pass into standing stubble is my favorite. Thank you.
Thanks, John.